Greetings, aspirants. Welcome to another enlightening episode of Voice of Civil Services, our Civic Center's very own podcast. I'm your host, and today we continue our discussion on fundamental rights. In our previous episode, we explored the significance of fundamental rights and covered the right to freedom. Now, let's delve into today's exciting topics. The third fundamental right is the right against exploitation. Let's take an example. There was a system called Devadasi system, under which women were devoted to Hindu deities in the name of worship. This was in some regions of southern and eastern India. Gods, worship objects, temples, and other religious structures under which they were victims of desire and immorality. Don't you think this is wrong? So, this is a form of exploitation. Know that exploitation includes forced labor or the buying and selling of human beings as slaves, which is also called trafficking. Our constitution strictly prohibits these practices, declaring them as crimes punishable by law. See, human trafficking involves dealing, like selling, allowing, or dispose of them like goods of men and women. Trafficking for unethical or other uses would include women and children. To punish such actions which result in the trafficking, the Immoral Trafficking of Women and Girls Act of 1956 is a law adopted by the Parliament according to Article 35 of the Constitution. Also know that by law, bonded labor has also been made illegal. See, the Constitution forbids the employment of children below 14 years in dangerous jobs like factories and mines. So, can the children work in construction sites? The answer is no. వాళ్ళతో కన్స్ట్రక్షన్ సైట్స్లో కూడా వర్క్ చేయించలేరు. In the case named People's Union for Democratic Rights versus Union of India, the Supreme Court held that the construction of a building is hazardous employment where children below the age of 14 years should not be employed. ఇంకా చాలా లాస్ ఈ కంటెక్స్ట్లో తీసుకొని వచ్చారు. Have a look at them. With the child labor now being illegal and the right to education becoming a fundamental right for children, the right against exploitation gains even more significance. Now, moving on to the right to freedom of religion. This right allows every citizen to follow the religion of their choice or even choose not to follow any religion at all. It's a hallmark of our democracy, promoting the freedom of conscience. So the people have the right to profess, follow, and propagate any religion they believe in. Now, is this absolute? The answer is no. The government can impose restrictions to protect public order, morality, and health. For instance, certain social practices like sati, bigamy, or human sacrifice have been banned in the past to eliminate social evils without violating the right to freedom of religion. Now, it's important that our diverse country treats all religions equally without favoring any particular one. See, India upholds the principle of secularism and there is no official state religion. Government institutions should refrain from preaching or favoring any religion. The aim is to sustain and nurture our rich cultural diversity. Coming to the next right, our constitution recognizes the importance of preserving the rights of minorities. These minorities can be based on religion, language, or culture. They have the right to maintain their distinct identity. They can establish educational institutions to safeguard and develop their culture. Discrimination based on the management of these institutions is strictly prohibited, ensuring equal opportunities for all. This comes under the cultural and educational rights. Now, why was this right given? What is the main purpose? See, the above rights have been granted by the Constitution with certain underlying purpose. India being a secular state, so to maintain it and let the minority to mix with the mainstream society. And it can also help in the development of the country. Other reason is that India is a country of diverse culture and everybody is equal. Hence, they have the equal opportunity to preserve it. As Supreme Court in Ahmedabad, St. Xavier College versus the state of Gujarat pointed out that the spirit behind the provision of the following article is the conscience of the nation that the minorities, be it religious as well as linguistic, are not prohibited from establishing and administering educational institutes of their choice for the purpose of giving the child the best general education to make them complete man and woman of the country. The minorities have been given the protection to preserve and strengthen the integrity of the country. The sphere general secular education will develop the commonness of boys and girls of India. This is the true spirit of liberty, equality and fraternity through medium of education. The minority will feel isolated and separated if they are not given these rights. General secular education will open doors of perception and act as the natural light of mind for our countrymen to live in the whole. The rights to administer have been given to the minority so that it can mold the institution as it thinks fit and accordance with its idea of how the interest of the community in general and institution in particular will best be served. While our constitution lists these fundamental rights, what's the use if there are no means to defend and realize them? And that's where the right to constitutional remedies comes into play. It is often referred to as the heart and soul of the Constitution by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. This right empowers citizens to approach the High Court or Supreme Court if any of their fundamental rights are violated. The courts have the authority to issue orders and directives to the government for enforcing these rights. Various special orders known as writs can be issued by the courts. First is the habeas corpus writ, which demands the presentation of an arrested person before the court and ensures that the arrest was lawful. If not, the person must be free. The habeas corpus writ was used in the Rajan case, who was a student victim of torture in local police custody during the nationwide emergency in India in 1976. On 12th March 2014, Subrata Roy's counsel approached the Chief Justice moving a habeas corpus petition. ఇంకొక ఎగ్జాంపుల్ చెప్పాలంటే తెలుగు మూవీ దృశ్యంలో కూడా మీరు ఈ టర్మ్ వినుంటారు. నెక్స్ట్ ఈజ్ ద mandamus writ, which is used when a public officer fails to perform their legal duties, infringing upon individuals' rights. For example, if there is a public officer who was to perform his duty, but తను ఆ డ్యూటీ చేయకపోవడం వల్ల మీ ఇండివిజువల్ రైట్స్ ఎఫెక్ట్ అవుతే, then you can approach the court and the court will issue this writ. But remember, this is only on the duties which he is obligated to perform. Next, the prohibition writ is issued by the higher courts to prevent lower courts from exceeding their jurisdiction in a particular case. Next, the quo warranto is another writ that prevents individuals from holding office if they are not entitled to do so. For example, a person of 62 years of age has been appointed to fill a public office, whereas the retirement age is just 60 years. Now the appropriate high court has a right to issue a writ of quo warranto against that person and declare the office vacant. Lastly, the certiorari writ orders a lower court or authority to transfer a pending matter to a higher court or authority. A defendant in a criminal case is convicted in a crime. Now the defendant feels that the conviction was based upon a violation of the constitution and appeals the case to the appeals court. The appeals court affirms the conviction. The defendant then petitions the Supreme Court to review the appeals court ruling. This petition is for a writ of certiorari. Beyond the judiciary, several mechanisms have been created to protect fundamental rights. Institutions like the National Commission on Minorities, the National Commission on Women, and the National Commission on Scheduled Castes play vital roles in safeguarding the rights of women, minorities, and Dalits. Additionally, the National Human Rights Commission ensures the protection of all fundamental and other rights. Now, this wraps up today's episode on fundamental rights. We hope you found this information enlightening and empowering. Stay tuned for our next episode, where